Look at all these beards that you have here. Yeah. Oops. Everybody come here.
Robert's got a quick hand, and he'll look around the room and he'll tell you his plan. Got a left run, my gun, all the others. Kids, you better run, outrun my gun.
I don't know what your name is, but babies. I haven't seen him for a while.
Cody, how you doing? Cody, how you doing? You wet dog?
Little darling, steer it up. Come on, baby, off my mind. And I just want to steer it together with you, my baby, to see what we can. Little darling, steer it up.
Holly finished it. She sent it to me. So I was showing everybody in Connecticut had seen your picture.
Over, there's a reason why my soul's out of town. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That same song twice. It's so nice. I wanna hear that same song twice.
Where's the
It's so nice. I wanna hear that same song twice. Hey DJ, don't stop the music.
There are two in there.
Two in the bathroom or two bathrooms?
Two bathrooms.
Oh, there you go.
One on the right and one on the left.
You guys are pleased to do.
That's a while
We're down with Cheryl.
Yeah, a while ago.
Hi, I'm Fran.
Hi,
Fran Weems, Marty Hillman. David Weems behind you.
Hi. Harvey.
Lucky.
Was the traffic back, to be honest?
No, I think it's
They had a sign out. So they did. We got just about 7/10 of the mile before 165. And we realized we were going to be bumping the first.
Well, I mean, this is what I'm seeing.
Is that what you see?
No, I'm pushing 100 very fast.
12 years.
But I'm closer to 100 than I am to
70.
I'm 88.
Yeah, so.
It's been a great life.
You still got a lot more ahead of you.
I still expect to do it.
That's right. So you're not ready to just give it up. Okay.
Nope.
You got grand dogs.
Hi, Cody. It's your bar mitzvah next week.
Yes.
So Eric, I went online and I got the recipe for his doggy bar mitzvah cake. I'm making him. He's having a candle lighting.
That's amazing.
It's all made with peanut butter. You know that there's tons of peanut butter.
See, Cody prefers.
That's what the recipe is.
How come you didn't tell me you were having a party when I saw you?
I didn't
Right,
know
can you Chinese
anything.
bar mitzvah cake?
All over the world.
My office. I'm Googling. I'm eating my salad. I'm Googling.
I've never seen.
They said, have you
And I said, how come I did
I
this?
said, I need to make a bar mitzvah cake. Head still.
Interest on mortgage. 58. Exactly.
That night, it was like 6 o'clock at night. He fell back on the steps.
I didn't get that.
And she slept with him down.
You saw the traffic, but you knew how to get around it. You worked it out. An hour and a half. Still well.
I don't know. He might be green.
I don't think it.
I love
That
it.
is nice. Really?
Where are you? No, she doesn't like it.
I know she was.
No, I gave her.
You're about to hear the relics of the Stars of Sound Orchestra, musical occasions, a very famous band that performed in the Catskills back in the 70s.
Anybody over there?
One, two, three, four.
the Magic Dragon. It's about a dragon that liked to puff. The magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn land, in the land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved the rascal puff and brought his strings and sealing wax and the other fancy stuff. Dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in a crazy land, in a land called Honolulu. Little Zadie danced with a puff all around. He moved his little boots with his high socks and he didn't frown. Zadie, 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 Zadie. Zadie, 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 Zadie.
Where's the jacket?
I don't have my jacket. Is this thing on? Okay. Dad, everybody please, I need just a little bit of attention. Isn't that always the case with kids? What a joy, what a blessing to be here today for this Simcha. Thank you all for participating and being here for our dad's 88th birthday celebration. Many of us were gathered 5 years ago for Dad's mulligan, or as Rabbi Wahlberg so eloquently termed it, the 70th anniversary of Dad's bar mitzvah. I thought about using the same speech today, counting on short-term memory defects as we all age. But 5 years kind of gets to the long-term memory range, so Dad, on the occasion of your bar mitzvah, I notified you that as a bar mitzvah, an adult in the eyes of the Jewish religion, you're responsible as an adult for your actions and their repercussions. In other words, you could no longer blame your wife or your children. Your responsibilities you had to shoulder, they were on yours. Based on the last 5 years, I gave the thought to another mulligan birthday here today, bar mitzvah here today. Renew those pledges. Speaking of renewals, I asked Mom about taking this occasion for Dad and her to renew their wedding vows. She gave me the same answer which I got when I presented the same idea to Rochelle at our recent family simcha, Jeremy and Sarah's engagement party. Don't push your luck. There are many here today, and we are blessed by this assemblage, who have had the privilege of knowing you longer. But I can and will speak from a perspective others cannot, that of the oldest son. Raising and guiding a parent is not always easy, and my experience is unique. Let me explain. Dad, Bob, what are you doing this summer? I'm looking for a job. Oh, no, you're not. You're working. We were not satisfied with the meager hourly pay one earned, not even $2 an hour in those days, so we were pretty entrepreneurial, and that's fine if you have skills. How difficult can it be to paint houses? We got our first job and realized we needed some guidance, if not on-the-job training, so Dad came along as a co-worker. Then there were the lawsuits. Little wonder I went to law school. Pray for Snow ski tours running one-day and weekend ski trips to Hunter, Bel Air, and Davos Mountains brought a suit from a customer who overslept the bus. Of course, Dad was the named defendant. His defense, if you're nutty enough to do business with my 15-year-olds, don't come to me. Thankfully, the house painting during college summers never brought any suits. It wasn't that we were neat. We didn't have any scaffolding or drop floors. What's that? We had paint, brushes, balls, and we smeared. Any drip paint on the trees and bushes was addressed by removing the leaves. We started the job and the greenery of spring was in full bloom. At job's end, the foliage typified the dead of winter, not a leaf on the plant. Dad left our painting business while he still had assets. We did learn how to refurbish handyman specials and even work on our own apartments and houses, wallpapering or the underground sprinkler Dad and I, or should I say Dad, installed in our first house. We learned how to paint, fix plumbing, work with electricity, sweat pipe, sand, and stain floors. In some, we learned what it is to come home from work tired and dirty as opposed to tired and clean. In fact, when I graduated from college, my MBA and law degree, 7 years, I was pretty proud of myself. My graduation gift for my accomplishments, a toolbox filled with tools, which I still have and use this day, more than 35 years later. Dad's message, humility, and don't forget where you came from, was what real work is. When we did real estate together, small potatoes, but our potatoes, I brought graduate degrees, calculators, and spreadsheets. Dad had a pencil in the back of an envelope. If it doesn't work on the back of an envelope, the deal's too tight and it doesn't work. We could have used them in Washington in 2008. Dad to the rescue, bailing us out and taking the time to teach us, working with us and by example. Dad talks about being in jail for 5 years. He thinks it's quite funny, but it raises questions. To be clear, Dad taught a course in general studies. During one class, he was explaining to his students that if they budgeted their money, so much for food, so much for rent, so much for entertainment, they could save a certain amount and eventually save enough to buy a car. One student responded, "Sheet, Mr. Ween, if I needs me a car, I'll steal me one." Dad told him, "If you were my son, I'd give you a good swift kick in the ass." The prisoner answered, "If I was your son, I wouldn't be here." Dad sets a great example. His belief in education was practiced, not just lip service. 8 years at night for a BA and 4 years at night for a master's. He gave Child of the 60s a new meaning. He's an explorer, adventurer, traveling the world ahead of the pack. Skiing in 1949 on their honeymoon. Jews skiing in 1949. Europe in the 60s, China and Russia in the 70s, Africa, Asia. Not a shy person, Dad is fearless to communicate in foreign languages and amazingly succeeds in making himself understood. I remember him acting as a translator, speaking Yiddish to a German and French to a Frenchman to facilitate their exchange. A great storyteller and many stories to tell. Of course, he lucked out when he got Mom drunk enough to marry him. Talk about being a good storyteller. Dad grew up in an impossibly poor and challenged household. As the youngest of 8, I was all told this, I wasn't around. Free milk at school was more important than it should have been. I remember Zadie, his father, who used to make me learn with him before I could eat dinner. Bringing home severely bruised fruit, he cut away more from the apple than was left to eat. He bought cucumbers and pickled them and sold them off a push cart before and after sewing pockets into pants. You did what you had to do. Dad, we appreciate the challenges that were imposed upon you and that you imposed upon yourself. You are one of the most challenging people, challenging yourself and everyone around you. It was far more difficult to build on what you started with and to accomplish what you have accomplished than the challenges that confronted Fred, Rick, and me. And we hope that our children, Jared and Jeremy, are blessed by us as we were for the luncheon pair that you were able to provide. Billy Joel sings in Allentown, every child had a pretty good shot to get as far as their old man got, but something happened on the way to that place. Dad, thank you for having done and provided for us a pretty good shot. Dad, we toast you on this wonderful occasion, this Simcha, one more milestone and a joy of life. May you continue to have good health, good friends, and good humor. We love you.
Three, two, one, live. Before I start on mine, I have some email messages from some people who weren't able to make it here today. The first is from Dorothy and Arthur Traeger, who said, "Hi Rick, I heard a secret from your mom who called about 2 weeks ago. Sounds like a wonderful celebration of Al's 88th birthday. I know he will be surprised. I wish we could join family and friends to give Al a hug and best wishes for his birthday. You know, Al and I were schoolmates. We gave each other courage to go back to college when you guys were little kids. That was an unforgettable time for both of us. Al has a special place in my heart. I wish him a happy birthday and many more surprise parties." And they actually sent a photo from Lake George when I couldn't have been more than about 4 years old. And so I'll pass this down there. Really incredible shot. That was Al Wien with his mustache. I don't know how many people remember him back then, but he had a really nice mustache. Marion and Murray Reinhertz were not able to make it either. They wish lots of nachas and mazel and gesund. The Boris and Sarita Millauer were also not able to make it, but also wish you lots of good luck. And the same thing with Ellie and Bill Colchin. So what I did was a happy 88th tribute to dear older dad, since my father likes to be called older but not old. And from one baby in the family to another, here goes. What a Nora Ephron, the screenwriter and director, Kevin Garnett, the superstar forward on the Celtics, Jim Lehrer, the news correspondent, Malcolm X, Ho Chi Minh, Pete Townsend, the legendary rocker, Albert Fish, a serial killer and cannibal, and my dad have in common. They were all extraordinary in their own right, and were all born on May 19th. Dad, when I think of what you are not, it exemplifies for me your most enviable qualities. As we all know, and Bob mentioned some of these things, so forgive my repetition. As we all know, you are not a couch potato. You're blessed with spilkus, wanderlust, an adventuresome spirit. Imagine, as Bob mentioned, skiing on your honeymoon when you'd never been skiing before, didn't know if you'd enjoy it, but you jumped right in, and we all know how much you enjoyed it and how much we all enjoy it. You're certainly not a wallflower. Whether it's a lecture, a party, a room full of strangers, you always jump right in to the conversation. You can truly light up a room, or even cause sparks to fly. Yikes. You're not into small talk. You thrive on continual debate, political exchange, mind-enhancing conversation. Unlike you, I usually turn to drugs for my mind enhancement. You're not shy. A great example is how you always try to communicate with foreigners when you travel in their language, as Bob mentioned, whether you know the language or not. And you actually succeed in being understood. Except for the time in Italy when I was all of 7 years old, when the pasta dish arrived with a meat sauce, and even though you specifically said, "Sanza carne, Sanza carne," maybe you should have tried Pig Latin. Don't they speak that at the Vatican? You're not afraid to kibitz with strangers, whether they're waitresses, flight attendants, Indian princesses, Menachem Begin. This seems to create instant warmth and bonding with people. You're not shy about telling the world how proud you are to be a Jew. You're not a foodie, and you don't enjoy talking about food or restaurants. You don't see food as anything more than sustenance. Thank goodness for Jared's discounts for friendlies. They're as exciting for you as five-star restaurants are for the rest of us. You're not materialistic. You're a collector of experiences and conversations, not possessions. You're a people person with a passion for meeting new people and getting to know different cultures. For some, fancy cars are important. For you, Dad, they represent 4 wheels and an engine to get you where you want to go. To prove that point, you packed a month's worth of clothing, 2 13-year-olds, a 7-year-old, Mom and yourself into a VW Beetle to drive for 4 weeks throughout Europe in 1964. I think we would have gotten the point with a slightly larger vehicle. You're not pessimistic. You're always a can-do guy. The sky's the limit. You always told me there was nothing that I could not accomplish. I could never have thought to apply to Harvard for business school were it not for you imparting your optimism and encouragement to me. You're not a stand-around kind of guy when there's work to be done. You've always jumped in to lend a hand, or a hammer, moving a door, building a wall for a neighbor, changing the plumbing pipes in my house, installing underground sprinkler system at Bob's house. We actually need to wrap this up early because I think Fred says, yeah, he's got a ceiling fan for you to install a little bit. Another thing you're not is intimidated. You've never been in awe of anyone or fearful about how you might come across in front of anyone, even a government leader or other famous person who you've met. I remember your words of wisdom to me when I was preparing for a meeting with the CEO of Bloomingdale's, I was about to ask for a recommendation to his alma mater, Harvard Business School. I was as very nervous, as this was obviously a very important person, and to me, quite intimidating. And you told me there's no reason to be nervous. You said, He's a guy just like you and me. He pulls down his pants to go to the bathroom the same way you do. Well, that did make the CEO seem more of a mere mortal to me. I was a little distracted by the graphic of him with his pants down. But after all these years, I'm wondering, are you aware that most guys don't pull down their pants to pee? Another thing you're not is passive regarding negotiating. And this is one trait that I wish that I had inherited, which unfortunately I have not. I remember being 10 years old in a Native American flea market in Mexico, and you eyed an onyx chess set, which you really liked. And again, not knowing Spanish, that didn't hold you back. You somehow negotiated the price in Spanish anyway. The vendor said 100, you said 10, you settled on 14. He obviously still made money, but I was so impressed I've been telling the story for the last 45 years. If you don't ask, you don't get. Another thing you're not is uninvolved. You've always placed the premium on family time while we were growing up and with your 8 grandchildren. Little league, school team games, class plays, award ceremonies, piano recitals, extended family trips to the Catskills in Florida. Maybe a bit too much bragging to some of the friends and family who are here, but what the heck. If you got it, flaunt it. Another thing you're not is bad looking. Is it possible you got your good looks from me? Thanks to you, Dad, I've enjoyed my life, something you've been known to preach, pursuing many of the experiences that you introduced me to at a young age. As I know that you've always been proud of how we've built upon many of the things, I reflect how we've progressed from humble beginnings on skis at Sterling Forest to the most challenging ski resorts around the globe. From a tent with no floor and no air mattresses to a tent with a floor and a thick queen-size mattress. Not exactly the Ritz-Carlton. From the VW Beetle to an 8-seater Suburban, which on those rare occasions when my 3 kids would complain that the Suburban was just not big enough for the 3 of them, I'd threaten them to selling it and getting a VW Beetle. From Europe on $5 a day, literally in 1964, to a thrilling African safari with Tammy, Fred, and Holly 2 summers ago at $5 a minute. You've come a long way, baby. I think your birth certificate actually recorded your name as Baby Ween. From sharing a bed, not a bedroom, with your 2 brothers, to owning 2 homes, from rushing to the dinner table to make sure you got some food before your 7 siblings ate it all, to enjoying Mom's reservations. From sacrificing a high school degree to help the family out financially, to ultimately earning bachelor's and master's degree. From the 5 boroughs to 6 of the 7 continents. I hear that penguins are too interested in talking about food anyway. So they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You've been an inspiration to my family and to me on how to live life, and that is the greatest legacy of all. Thank you, I love you, and keep living till 100 like you're 20.
Rick, that was great. First of all, I really want to sincerely thank all of you for coming. I know you come from far and away, and in particular during the performance of the Stars of Sound Music for All Occasions Orchestra that last performed back in the 70s. I thank you very much for your kindness, and I hope that the frozen margaritas contributed to your appreciation of our music. I'm not going to try and thank specifically the people who've come here, but the ones that come to mind. I mean, Barbara and Alan coming from Israel, and Herb Katz. And when I spoke to you on the phone after 40 years or whatever, I think I asked you if you still have the leather motorcycle jacket with chains that I remember seeing when I was probably about 9. That's probably the last time I saw you. And Paul helped get me some of the contacts and showing up here. Thank you very much. I hope your wife is feeling better. And Carl, Nick, Peggy, and Susie, it's been a long time. And on behalf of Holly and myself, we're really honored that you made the effort to come here, and I show that my father sincerely appreciates it as well. We could have done better with the heat, but as long as you guys stay outside and just go inside the bathrooms, we'll be fine. The food will be ready, and it's going to get cooler, and it's not going to rain, so we're all good. Dad, enough has been said about you. I don't want to give you a swelled head.
But I want to echo my thoughts that